of BCC. Multiple SWAT units responding code 3 to CP at 127th and Adelaide. Barricade situation.
Open and clear. Bang it.
Suspect in sight.
Hands in the air! Get down! Police!
Room clear.
Get your hands up! Get down! Open and gas. Blue team, open and clear. Go when ready. Let's move! Go, go, go!
Suspect in sight.
Get down!
High ground reporting. Side 2, level 1. Unknown in the parking lot.
Police, put your hands up! Police, get down now!
High ground.
Hey everyone, today we are reviewing SWAT 4 single and multiplayer modes, its expansion, and finally a very popular SWAT 4 mod called SWAT Elite Force. This is sort of a follow-up to my SWAT 3 review. While it's not mandatory having watched that to understand what's going on in this one, I'd still recommend watching the AI portion of that video for comparisons that are going to eventually happen in this one. With that out of the way, let's start the review. SWAT 4 was developed by Irrational Games, a game studio formed by the former members of the legendary Looking Glass Studios, who were responsible for PC gaming classics such as Ultima Underworld, System Shock, and the Thief series. Throughout its existence, Irrational Games is probably best known for having developed System Shock 2, BioShock, and BioShock Infinite before quietly dissolving into the corporate amorphous blob that is Take-Two and 2K. With such a great track record, you would expect the sequel to the 1999 classic SWAT 3 would be in great hands, but I'm not so sure playing the game 17 years later. The premise is very simple. You are the element leader of a 5-man SWAT team in the fictional city of Fairview. The game can be described as being a first-person tactical shooter with emphasis on utilizing your SWAT officers and special gadgets while responding to various scenarios ranging from heists, raids on illegal criminal hideouts, house arrests, and hostage rescue scenarios. The presentation of SWAT 4 feels immediately different from its predecessor. The game always takes place during dusk and nighttime. The graphical improvements since 1999 allows for grimy, cluttered, and disgusting looking environments. Everything feels just more moody and depressing, but rather than feeling more realistic, it feels a lot more stylized. This fictional city is clearly inspired by the real-life city of New York, but with these subtle nudges it ends up feeling more like Gotham City from the Batman comic books. And this happens despite the fact that this game contains a lot of messed up imagery and content. You can clearly see that it was inspired by a real world, but somehow what ends up being presented feels like a caricature. My personal theory as to why this happened is that this game was developed after 2001. And considering what happened in New York at the time, there is no way to develop a game set in the real city where you constantly have to respond to scenarios with escalating violence and not have it stir up some sort of controversy in the USA. Perhaps the developers deliberately changed the tone and feel of the game to something more stylized, imitating our real world but not be the real thing. I mean, come on, look at here. We're in this extremely tense life and death situation where there may be a gunman waiting in the next corner to kill us all, but these highly trained SWAT officers are cracking meta jokes about video games in this arcade.
Stupid kids wasting so much time and money on video games.
Hey, old man, you're just jealous because your reflexes are too slow.
Oh, and the game has working mirrors. This is something that will always impress me in a video game, and I shall always mention it whenever I come across it. But these are some of the most janky looking mirrors that I have ever seen in my life. So, how was the gameplay then? Well, the basic gameplay at offer, that is the movement and shooting, feels considerably more realistic than its predecessor. The player movement is in line with an actual human speed and every step you take feels much more deliberate. However, one thing that kept constantly annoying me was that they removed the ability to lean and move at the same time. This was an essential part of methodically clearing out a room, and with this removed, I barely used the lean function other than to peek around corners. I have my suspicion that this was done in order to balance things out for multiplayer, or that the animation system in the game really didn't allow for that sort of thing. That's also a possibility. Similar to SWAT 3, you explore the level commanding your team, methodically breaching and clearing rooms with your non-lethal grenades, arresting everyone in the room, collecting fallen guns, and finally reporting everything to the TOC. This time around they made it so that you can rapidly report things in the room without waiting for the voice commands to finish, and thank God for that. But there is still no easy way to rapidly arrest everyone. You need to tell your men one by one to arrest each individual, and that sometimes takes more effort to pull off compared to just arresting everyone yourself. Plus, you still need to report the arrests made by your squad as well. If only there was some function in the game to speed up all this busy work after clearing a room. There is a new tool added to the game called the Opti-One, which is a portable camera replacing the mirror on a stick from SWAT 3. You can use it to look under doors to gain intel about what's on the other side, allowing you to make greater tactical decisions regarding the situation. This thing is a game changer, I love it. I wonder what happens if I point the Opti-One at the mirror. Oh no, oh my god, it killed the frame rate. Shut it off, turn it off. I think I almost crashed the game there. Never do that again. Noted. Another new tool is a simple door wedge that allows you to barricade potential flanking and escape routes of the suspects and get better spatial control of the level as you move through it. The gunplay on offer is a lot more realistic this time around. It is next to impossible to hit your shots while running. Crouching and standing still is your best bet to hit your targets. The new weapon fire selection mechanic is also very useful. If you want to make precision shots and minimize hitting civilians, use semi-auto. But if you need that close quarters firepower, just switch to full auto. I mean, come on, you're playing as the cops. Nobody's going to yell at you for using full auto in the buildings. The behavior between SMGs and assault rifles is also very pronounced this time around. With SMGs you can keep firing non-stop and be very accurate with your shots, whereas with assault rifles, full auto is a wild beast that is extremely difficult to control. But the trade-off is that you are getting better armor penetration against the more armored foes. The shotguns are meh. I would say that they are realistically portrayed in the game, aka you can shoot and hit targets that are further than 5 meters. But SMGs are just plain better. You get more bullets, easier and faster reloads, and you don't have to stress that your stray pellets are going to hit a civilian. Much like real life police use, the only reliable use I found for the shotguns was for door breaching. And finally, there are less lethal weapons such as shotguns with beanbags, a paintball gun with special pepper balls, and a taser sidearm. I don't have a real problem with these weapons being in the game, but conceptually it never made any sense to me to bring these. I mean, this isn't just some civil unrest where you're trying to do some crowd control. We're not playing as riot cops, we're the freaking SWAT team, and we're responding to stuff like a truck just rammed through the entrance of a bank, a group of organized suspects equipped with AKs and body armor started taking hostages and are now raiding the vault. Yeah, there's no way in hell a real SWAT team is going to bring a paintball gun for that. I'm giving all my men assault rifles with full metal jacket rounds for armor piercing. We aren't here to tickle guys brandishing AK-47s. But I will admit that the taser is fine when needed. It is small and easy to carry after all. Oh, and in the multiplayer mode, the non-lethal weapons are actually extremely fun to use. You can stun your opponents and arrest them for extra points. Something else that the game makes a huge deal out of is the rules of engagement system. On paper, this system sounds very similar to the system in SWAT 3. You are not allowed to shoot someone unless they're pointing their guns at you, civilians, or if they are actively shooting at you. You lose points for breaking these rules, and the level of difficulty you're playing at determines the minimum score you need in order to progress to the next level. What I found in practice is that the game has a very loose interpretation of what pointing a gun at something is. This never really was an issue in SWAT 3. If they pulled a gun at you after being flashbanged, plus being yelled to surrender, it's their own damn problem after that point if they get shot or not. SWAT 4 wants you to go out of your way to use pepper spray or taser darts on dudes that are heavily armed and armored. That is just not a realistic situation. If someone is still holding on to their AK after being yelled to drop it several times, that person is getting shot. There is no ifs or buts about it. Also, the suspects in this game like to run away and hide all the damn time, which turns the game into a very nasty hide and seek simulator and wastes your time. And if you shoot a fleeing suspect after explicitly yelling them to surrender, well, you lose points. No game, that's not how cops operate. If someone carrying a gun does not comply with orders in real life and starts fleeing, they are going to get shot somewhere. Hopefully their legs or something. I approve the inclusion of the system in the game, don't get me wrong. I mean, you are playing a SWAT officer and you should be following the same rules real SWAT officers follow in real life. It's just that the implementation this time around is too inconsistent and frustrating as a player. Is this a Postal 2 reference?
Here's the deal. I'm all out of the very popular elephant foot wastebaskets. The kids love them. Elephant foot wastebaskets, elephant foot wastebaskets.
Sadly, I have come to the conclusion that the AI on offer here in SWAT 4 is a significant regression from the AI that was in SWAT 3. Compared to other mid-2000s FPS games, however, the AI is fine-ish. I would say even above average, but side by side to SWAT 3, no, there are just too many issues to ignore here. My main problem stems from the extreme stupidity of your own team. Oftentimes when following you, they never intervene in firefights. Sometimes they stop following you and leave you alone in a room to fight with 3 gunmen. Other times they just stare at suspects at point blank range and just wait to get killed. They constantly tell you to move over and that you're standing in their spots or whatever. It feels like they are barely functioning within the game world. The suspects on the other hand are a little better, but they have a tendency of not engaging with you and just run away. And much like the officers, they too have full meltdowns and just get stuck doing nothing and get into staring contests with you or the AI. Okay, here's a very boomer analogy, but considering people interested in SWAT 4 are probably as old as me, you stand a reasonable chance of having played the 90s FPS RPG hybrid Hexen. Now, the first chapter of Hexen, called The 7 Portals, is notorious for being very complicated and having these obtuse, elaborate puzzles that you have to solve by finding random hidden switches that are on like 4 or 5 different maps that are being constantly repopulated by enemies as you go through. If we were to put the SWAT 3 officers into the 7 portals, I can just picture them in my mind methodically clearing out the various puzzle maps, flashbanging rooms, taking out or arresting the Edens and Serpent enemies and finishing the whole thing in maybe around 30 minutes. And then I picture the SWAT 4 officers in the 7 portals where they get stuck near the first door because they kept yelling at the Serpent to drop his weapon, and the Serpent just comes up and bites them all to death in under a minute. The audio work of the game is very decent overall. The weapons can sound a little dinky at times, but they mostly get the job done. What stands out are the overall voiceover work and the banging music tracks. When your officers are not blabbering out cringy 15-year-old teenager comments, they actually sound professional and calm under fire.
Deploy breaching shotgun.
Shotgun to the door. Say goodbye to Mr. Door.
Clear it. Go, go. Got it.
Time to move. Go, go, go! No visible threats.
Fields.
Trailers.
I'm clear.
Area clear. Clear.
The TOC guy over the radio is again voiced very well.
Entry team to talk. Injured suspect secured. He's in pretty bad shape.
Roger that. Trailers and EMTs are standing by.
And the snipers on your radio sound like real sniper units giving you callouts as the situation develops in real time.
Sierra 2 reporting I have an unknown contact.
The hostages can panic, refuse to surrender, or sometimes yell to you the positions of gunmen.
On the ground, now!
Contact inside.
Police, on your knees!
Why are you waving those things at me?
Put your hands up and get down!
I'm not one of the shooters. There's a gunman.
Fall in on me. Suspect neutralized.
They went to
Drop the gun!
What?
Suspect killed.
The suspects, depending on their ethnicity and background, sound and comment differently as you arrest them.
Oh, shit. My old man's gonna be pissed.
Red. Tie up that idiot.
I got it. Bastards.
Piece of trash.
And finally, some of the standouts are the 911 calls on the mission briefing screens where people are panicked, confused, and sometimes frustrated.
911 emergency 107, hello?
I'm at the A-bomb. These guys are shooting it out or something. They hit my girlfriend.
What is the address?
Shit, I don't know the address. I mean, it's the A-bomb on Adelaide. Come on, she's bleeding.
Okay, I'm sending an ambulance, but if you could give me a street address, that'd help.
What the hell? You putting me on hold? Isn't this 911? I don't know the damn address.
The soundtrack for the game and the expansion is composed by Eric Brosius, who also composed the soundtracks for Thief the Dark Project and Thief 2 The Metal Age. Much like its predecessor, SWAT 4 has two types of soundtrack that plays depending on your situation. The first one is the stealth track that plays when you're not in a firefight. These ones are usually heavy on the bass and percussions and create an ambiance of tension, because, you will be getting into a firefight sooner or later. The second one starts when the yelling and the shooting starts. These usually tend to be heavy on guitar riffs, synthesizer sounds, and sometimes trumpets. And every single level has its own unique soundtrack, so the music always feels fresh. That is, if you're playing this game for the first time around. As for me, I must have played this game for hundreds of hours between the years 2005 and 2009, so this music hurts my brain more than anything, thus I turned it off to maintain my sanity yet again. Again, I want to emphasize that this is no fault of the composer, it's just a personal issue of mine. However, one of my favorite tracks has to be the Food Wall Restaurant Stealth theme song. That bass and synthesizer combo is just too good. Makes this almost feel like a cyberpunk cop raid on a cyber diner in cyber New York. Okay, you may be wondering, having complained about the AI so much, why did I even play this game for hundreds of hours back in the day? Well, the answer is pretty simple: the multiplayer. To be specific, I mean the VIP escort mode in the multiplayer. There are other modes such as co-op and a more traditional team deathmatch as well. Even today, there is a small but dedicated player base playing this game every evening 17 years after its launch, and it's not that hard to find a server around 8 to 9 PM GMT. But first you need to download a small fix in order to be able to see the active servers in your server browser, because this game used to use GameSpy and that service has been shut down over a decade ago. The link for the fix is in the description of the video. The rules for the VIP mode goes like this. One of the players on the SWAT team is randomly chosen to be the VIP, and the SWAT team needs to escort the VIP and protect him until he reaches the extraction point. If that happens, the SWAT team wins that round. The suspect team on the other hand needs to capture the VIP by stunning and then handcuffing him. Now this is the secret sauce to this game mode right here. Normally in any other game, the VIP mode revolves around outright killing the VIP, which is boring. After the VIP is captured, a 2-minute countdown timer begins. In this time frame, the SWAT team needs to reach and rescue the VIP. Once the countdown is over, the suspects can execute the VIP and win the round. If at any point the VIP is killed prematurely, whichever team did the killing loses that round. This mode is genius. It combines one of the most unique aspects of the game, that being the less lethal equipment, and integrates it into the primary gameplay loop itself. And the VIP itself acts as a pseudo-moving capture the flag goalpost. Everything revolves around the position of the VIP, so it's always dynamic and constantly moving. There are a couple more multiplayer specific changes in the game, like the addition of a few new weapons and the ability to choose your armor and helmet types. For your head, you choose between the gas masks or the helmet and goggles combo. The former makes you immune to gas grenades and halves the effects of the pepper spray and pepper balls, but significantly reduces your vision. The latter makes you immune to flashbangs and I think protects you against low caliber headshots. For your body, you can choose a light armor, which allows you to run and walk faster but gives you less protection against bullets. Or you can choose heavy armor, which slows you down significantly but turns you into a defensive powerhouse against SMGs, and it significantly reduces the effects of stinger grenades, which are very commonly used in multiplayer. This ability to choose what tactical equipment, guns and ammo types you can bring into the field and adapt on the fly between respawns adds a very fun rock, papers and scissors dynamic to the multiplayer mode. The only useless gadget I can think of here is the Opti Wand. Since everyone has access to these tactical grenades and everyone is going to be using different loadouts, it is extremely important to cover your teammates and work together as a team. That's not to say a lone wolf player isn't useful, but it tends to hurt the team more than it helps most of the time. The abundance of these less lethal grenades means that you'll be spending most of your game time getting stunned over and over if you are not careful about your approach. Try to communicate with your team, bait out the enemy team's grenades with one player and lay ambushes with another covering him. Oh, and friendly fire is always on, so be extremely careful with your shots and grenade throws. And yes, accidents will happen from time to time. This is a game after all. Learn to apologize and forgive others in order to move on. Man, I just love this game mode. It's this constant push from both sides trying to get a hold of the VIP using the various routes on the map to flank and outsmart each other. You really have to improvise on the fly while playing it. Once the suspects capture the VIP, they suddenly get into defense mode. Then the players dynamically go around, cover the doorways into the room. A few of them go to flank or outright delay the SWAT team, and a couple sit next to the VIP, periodically using tasers and pepper spray in order to stun him in place so he doesn't crawl towards the SWAT team. Most of my time that I spent capturing footage for this game, I spent on playing this game mode, not the single player. It still feels fresh and unique even today. There just isn't anything else quite like it on the market. The game received an expansion pack called the Stetchkov Syndicate 1 year after its release. It adds a couple of new guns, a few new gadgets and less lethal options, and a new campaign mode with brand new maps. It also tries to improve the suspect AI a little bit by making them get up and flee if you don't arrest them. But the friendly officers are still dumb as stacks of chopped wood.
Move! Go! Go! Go!
Clear so far.
Suspect down.
Police!
Police,
Police!
drop your
Drop your
weapons.
weapons.
Police,
Police,
drop your
drop your
weapons.
weapons.
Police,
Get down now!
Plus, it doesn't allow you to play the old campaign maps with these new guns and gadgets. And finally, the multiplayer servers for the expansion are literally always empty. So yeah, not much to see here unfortunately, but some of the new music tracks for the maps are downright amazing. If there's anything to take away from this video is that even if you don't enjoy this game, at least listen to the soundtracks if you're into rock or electronic music. What about this Elite Force mod though? Well, it's an overhaul mod for the gold version of the game. It combines the campaigns of the main game and the expansions together, adds a ton of new weapons and gadgets, restores cut content, changes the loadout system to a weight-based system that affects your movement and animation speed. And finally, the most important improvement, it fixes the stupid AI of your friendly officers. They are no longer incompetent buffoons getting killed by common street thugs. I don't know what improvements they made, but it sure feels like the AI now behaves closer to how it did in SWAT 3. They even added a command that tells your men to gather all the weapons in a room and handcuff everyone inside.
Civilian complied. Stay down. Stay quiet, you. Element. Clear that room. Stay down. Got it. Weapon secure. Stay quiet. Weapon secure. Strange bad guy.
It's just so beautiful to watch them.
Docked entry team. Objectives complete.
We're done. Make them safe. We're heading in.
They even automatically report the people they handcuffed to the TOC. Man, I gotta take a break. This is just too much for me to handle. This mod is like a Christmas miracle come true. Okay, they still sometimes do stupid shit like this, but I think that's the fault of the core game engine itself. The mod does a godly amount of improvements to the AI.
Blue, on my signal.
Get it open. Gas and clear.
Copy. On it. Suspect is visible.
Oh, shit.
Hands in the air!
Docked entry team. Objectives complete.
Good work, guys. Let's head to debrief.
Calling Elite Force a mod is almost a disservice. It feels like a third expansion pack added to the game. It improves and fixes almost every problem I have with the base game itself without changing the feel of the core squad-based tactical FPS that is here. Conclusions time! The base SWAT 4 single-player experience is a regression of the SWAT 3 single-player experience. However, with the Elite Force mod installed, it comes very close to the 1999 experience with newer guns, features, and prettier graphics. In my personal opinion, no one should play SWAT 4 single-player without the Elite Force mod installed. It should be mandatory to install it for anyone in order to enjoy the game. The base multiplayer, on the other hand, is still one of the most unique experiences I have ever seen in a tactical first-person shooter, and it's still a blast to play 17 years later. I honestly think this is where the game shines the best. SWAT 4 Gold is available to be purchased exclusively on GOG from what I can tell, although you may get lucky and come across a box CD copy of the game. If you still have a DVD drive on your computer in 2022, that is something you could consider as well. I hope you enjoyed this review. I am now waiting for Ready or Not to come out of early access so I can review it and compare it to SWAT 3 and SWAT 4 Elite Force. Oh, and the author of Elite Force mod apparently works on the development team of Ready or Not, so I can feel a bit more safe expecting a functioning squad AI. Like and comment and subscribe and all that jazz. Take care of yourselves and I will see you in the next video.
Remix,
Don't tell your mama. Don't tell your mama.